I'm on the phone.
Great.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay?
So if you just want to kick us off.
Sounds like they got me in.
So Garrett, I don't know, can you hear us? If you want to go ahead and get started, it sounds like Melody was passing. Well, actually, I think we put on the agenda though, I put Jesse's presentation first, Melody, so that Jesse could jump off.
Oh,
afterwards.
I didn't even see that. Yes, definitely.
So we have Jesse Ansari, who's the chair of ProSab, here today to talk about the GoCo grant that ProSab's applying for. So we'll turn it over to Jesse.
Yeah, hey, Miranda, do you have the, there you go, you're doing it.
There we go.
Hi guys. Thank you very much for fitting us in tonight and getting this ProSab item on your agenda. Pretty excited to just share what's hopefully in the works for Netherlands public park space. So yeah, we have this little presentation to show you, and I will just try and chunder fairly quickly through this. Miranda's probably seen it way too many times now, but yeah, hopefully you've had a chance to maybe look through some of the web page that ProSab has set up right now. It's right on the homepage of the Netherlands Town website, and that has kind of all the different links to the different components and the budget and the timeline and the various aspects like that. So we've basically been conducting outreach with a variety of local nonprofits, businesses and stakeholders over the last few weeks. And some of these are like the Netherlands Community Library, Teens Inc., Ned Seniors, Wild Bear Nature Centre, Alps Coaching, Tadasana Yoga, some event organisers, health and human services people. And so you'll kind of see how that ties in to this kind of the emphasis on this plan. It's a very multi-use shared community space. It focuses on equitable access very much. And then if you want to just write down any thoughts or keep them to the end, and then we'll do like a Q&A. And I've definitely got some specific questions that I would love to ask you guys for your expertise too. All right, let's get going. So this is just talking a little bit about the GoCo strategic plan. It's in response to the disruption caused by the COVID pandemic this year. So it's called the Resilient Communities Programme, and it's for outdoor recreation, stewardship and land protection projects that best reflect community needs at this very moment in time. So through this programme, they will fund one-time immediate needs or opportunities that have emerged in direct response to the pandemic. So within the context of these GoCo 5 programme values for this year, which is resource conservation, outdoor stewardship, community vitality, equitable access, youth connections. And then proposed projects should address one or more of the following: capacity and operation support, land stewardship, community vitality, urgent and emergent land acquisitions. Slide. So we talk a little bit about community need, trying to address the needs that have arisen in response to the pandemic here. So during regular years, Netherlands sees high levels of recreational traffic due to the effects of the pandemic. Spring and summer, Netherlands parks have seen an unprecedented record numbers of visitors. So the western shoreline of Barca Reservoir sees a high volume of foot traffic along its one perimeter trail and near the mouth of Middle Boulder Creek, where it meets Barca. So this means that a lot of our visitors are ending up in a bottleneck around this area, and it's been a struggle to maintain recommended social distances with these narrow trails, and then just a lack of overall trails in the area means that visitors are funneled along this one path where we think they could be spread out much more effectively given the space available. So enhanced circulation is a prominent feature of this project. And we talk a little bit about how our public spaces and the green areas have become critical havens. So the idea that is this project will transform the unusable public space down there in Netherlands into a vital, flourishing recreational and natural area. It's called Barca Meadows Park, as you know. So within Barca Meadows, the town's historic Gershio Memorial Ball Field will be rehabilitated, and across the creek, there'll be much needed restroom improvements over at the Chapter Park Pavilion, which will allow for the reopening of those community facilities. Slide. We talk a little bit about financial burdens in the narrative. Is just one of the things that GoCo wants us to address. So we're talking about how Netherlands budgets were slashed. The town is having to balance resulting budget and find ways to share and cut administrative costs and functions. There's financial challenges that mean that at this time, the town of Nederland, it just has really extremely limited resources to expend on any non-essential personnel and programs. But whatever Nederland lacks in monetary resources, we're talking about how it's made up for many times over in community involvement and how the community has come together lots of times over this summer during lockdown and as recently as restrictions have eased, with residents extending help to one another and trying to support local establishments. But with unemployment ballooning and the threat of worse financial pain for many to come, neighbourly goodwill will only get us so far. So the goal is to engage with locally active non-profit organisations, and that way the town will be able to effectively leverage some local resources and strengths. So ProSab is really believing that this project will relieve pressure on our parks, the holding capacity, and it will allow visitors to spread out to enjoy the shoreline area. And we talk about a little bit about some studies that indicate access to healthy activities can even lead to higher levels of gross domestic product and economic well-being. Slide. We talk a little bit about the value of parks. We've been asking the question, what can we do to ensure all of our public spaces, both natural and built, are safe and welcoming to all? So in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic, parks and outdoor spaces have just become even more special. And they've been giving families and small groups of people a safe way to be together. And so this park improvement project, the goal is that it will improve both mental and physical health. We do believe that communities are safer as a result of wholesome atmosphere created by healthy activities and programming for all people. We have a little quote from Tadasana Mountain Yoga. The town has generously allowed us to use the public park to hold our classes outdoors. We're so grateful to have this resource available to use the restrooms as they need to be retrofitted to meet new health and safety standards. The grant would allow town to do the necessary work. It would be great to have more space available and to be able to accommodate more use in our public spaces. Slide. A little bit more about equitable public spaces and kind of the reasoning that we really think this is a critical grant programming for this time. And it basically talks about how Nederland is surrounded by forests and wilderness and montane trails, and yet there's very little opportunity for residents to recreate within town limits. And this disproportionately affects marginalised residents. And that's those people lacking personal transport, elderly and young families. And Nederland is absorbing the challenges that the pandemic caused, and yet it's always finding creative new ways to function. And this has particularly affected schools and daycare closures. That has raised the needs and usages of our parks and outdoor spaces. And it's really just greatly increased pressures on Nederland's infrastructure and our public works. Young people and elderly have seen their routines upended and have been particularly affected by the loss of their regular services. So access to the outdoors and a few added recreational resources will greatly enhance the community's ability as a whole to withstand and recover from pandemic-related stresses. So some of the improvements we've got listed to our in-town park areas to create a peaceful outdoor space, we have kind of the creation of ADA accessible trails. These are going to be soft surface 36-inch trails to provide equal access for wheelchairs, walkers, stroller users. And then the area is also heavily used by dog walkers and joggers. So widening the trail will help accommodate more users. And then there will be strategically placed doggy waste stations around to help dog owners dispose of their dog waste properly. I know this is one of the things we've loved to connect with you in the future about, for sure. Slide. So this is just a little slide about the three kind of recent-ish maps. The one in the top right corner is the 2013 plan. The one in the bottom right is the 2018 plan, and now this is the 2020 plan. So you can kind of see the similarities. You can really see that the 2020 plan is a very kind of stripped down. We're really talking about essentials right now. So it's these are not just, we would like to have, this is the stuff that we really need to have. Slide. Getting into details a little bit more, we've got some details about the Gershio Memorial Ball Field space. And that is, we've been working with Teens Inc. quite closely on this area, and they would like to use it for some of their soccer teams and just to practice their skills, and other playing, just to have some outdoor space to run. Uneven ground and the small rocks make playing there hazardous. Barca Meadows will become a place that Netherlands youth programs can use to run, practice soccer skills, play baseball, spend time outdoors. Even in 2013, the Netherlands Parks Master Plan identified this zone as in need of rejuvenation. So as you know, flat, undeveloped, open space public land in Netherlands is extremely scarce. The goal is to maintain the multi-use benefits, have a space available for team sports like soccer and baseball, but also for low impact activities like dog walking, picnicking, frisbee, kite flying. And then we were talking about irrigation. So irrigating Gershio will ensure the hardiness of grass needed to also withstand short-term events and festivals. So this funding accelerates a much needed park improvement project and local vision for Netherlands, and it just includes the priority components of that vision, first laid out in the 2013 master plan. We have a little quote on the left there from Ariel, and she's the executive program director over at Teens. She says, ensuring the capacity for TeenWorks to run is even more urgent than ever before amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Teens Inc. is located in the heart of the project area, and increased usage of the lands has affected our ability to safely use the outdoor area near our building for classes or programs for our alternative high school or our out-of-school programs. We also run a preschool, which will greatly benefit from the work being done at Chapter Park. Slide. So a little bit more detail about Gershio here. And as you know, it's rare, flat, open space area. It preserves a view of the reservoir. And then we talk about how this project will improve just the visuals by shielding some of the buildings at the shorefront from view with trees, native trees and shrubs to create a more pleasant natural atmosphere. We go into a little bit more detail here about the discussion of irrigation. So we have gone back and forth as the ProSAB board during multiple meetings over the past year. We have kind of discussed the pros and cons of the different alternatives, from temporary sprinklers to perimeter above ground watering, even to agricultural style like large scale rolling irrigation to no water at all. And so we've had some quite good discussions too with Public Works about long-term maintenance, and that was a big factor in considering irrigation with this park. So this was definitely a recommendation that we worked with them, because it looks like without irrigation, it would be very unlikely that the turf would be hardy enough to host any annual large events or smaller events like the farmers market, just because the grass would lack the resilience then to bounce back. So the goal is to carefully lay out irrigation with a clearly delineated map in this small area that will allow for a sports-worthy field and the capability to host these events. So the Barca Meadow behind that is also being restored into a usable event and gathering space, which will have no irrigation. So yeah, the board decided this was going to be the best option to move ahead, and a best balance between active recreation and events with medium impact, and then the need for resource conservation. Okay, slide. Yeah, we talk a little bit about how kind of just the park, it belongs to, you're trying to get it to belong to the most amount of people in our community as possible. So it really is a park asset that belongs to all, to everyone. A little bit about Teens Inc., what we're planning on Teens Inc. side. So TeamWorks is a Teens Inc. program, and it is an employment program. It offers opportunity for underrepresented local Colorado youth to engage in their public lands and be part of a learning-based program. They earn money and they earn scholarships during this employment. So TeamWorks employs all of its youth from Colorado, half are from the Denver metro area, the other half from Nederland and from the underserved rural peak-to-peak areas. So these youth are typically aged 15 to 19, and more than half of the participants are non-white. So the majority of youth return for 3 to 5 summers, meaning that this teamwork program provides local youth with a long-term connection to environmental stewardship. And studies have shown that when adolescents feel engaged to the creation of their own community spaces, they feel an increased responsibility and stewardship towards it, which is really the goal here. And Teamworks also bridges the gap between a sustainable summer salary and a quality educational programme. So this team will be employed as a crew with a team leader. I believe it's a 6-person crew with a 2-team leader. I'd have to double check on that. And we've got in the budget for 15 hours for this team. And they will build the trails, and they'll also assist in the construction of the natural play structure that's here. And we just talk about how this is valuable educational work experience and an opportunity for youth to develop skills and practices that are going to be useful for them later in life. So the ProSAB is interested in fostering authentic partnerships like this to actively encourage stewardship, particularly among younger population. Adolescents with easy access to recreation are more physically active and less likely to engage in unhealthy or harmful activities. A little bit about stewardship too. We're just going back to kind of some of these core concepts that GoCo are looking for here. So we have been, the ProSAB have been co-hosting a series of noxious weed pulls over this summer with the help of local expert ecologist Rhea, and we've also been encouraging some participation from other local nonprofits, particularly those that offer outdoor education. And at this time of necessary social distancing and virtual learning, a lot of local educators are seeking alternative ways to teach their students. So the Resilient Communities Programme the goal is to also connect kids and families to the outdoors, just by making it easier to spend longer periods of time outside. So a park area featuring benches, shade, interpretive signs, and a landscape free of debris and broken glass to enable children to safely explore their community's natural shoreline environment throughout the year. By engaging with locally active nonprofit organisations, the town is able to effectively leverage some local resources and strengths. This programme will relieve pressure on our park's holding capacity and allow visitors to safely spread out and enjoy the shoreline area. All right, slide. Talk a little bit here about the 2 outdoor-focused child educational opportunities in Nederland, the Wild Bear Nature Centre, local nature and educational non-profit, and the New Explorers Playgroup. So both of these organisations take children out and about around on local expeditions around the Nederland area, hands-on learning about local ecology and geology, etc. So this project, the goal is also to provide new outdoor classroom areas for these organisations and help to create these connections between the children and the natural world. So the Barca Meadow area, otherwise some people are referring it to a performance area. We're just calling it Barca Meadow for ease of speaking. And that was reclaimed from a former sludge pond. So preserve, restore and rehabilitate that space for multi-use. And where the goal is to aid in Netherlands' climate resilience by building new birding habitats and using native pollinator plants for bees. So hopefully children's education services in Netherlands will be greatly benefited from this sustainable and forward-thinking parks project. We have a little quote here from one of the parents of a New Explorers student. Since the COVID-19 pandemic hit, getting outside and into nature has become more critical for our kids than ever. With schools closing or limiting attendance, many parents are now homeschooling their children, and school staff are working as hard as they can to keep enrolled students outside as much as possible to prevent viral spread and limit exposure. We have never needed well thought out educational outdoor spaces more than we do right now. Slide. Barca Meadow is the open space here, reclaimed from the former sludge pond. And this is going to be a potential event space or possible future amphitheatre, gathering space, natural area in years to come. We're not really developing anything in the middle, just improving drainage and stormwater drainage in this area, a little bit of grading. So rehabilitation of this area, we really believe it'll be a huge morale boost to the community. But the value of the space goes beyond the grass and the trees, because the goal is to create a healthier, more equitable place to live, which will help build connections both between town representatives and the communities they serve. So this project is carefully channeled at the moment towards creating low maintenance features. And that means choosing hardy, drought-tolerant grasses, native shrubs, native trees, sustainable materials, and it's also affecting the choice of seating, and there's not really any shelters in this plan. So there's anti-vandal picnic benches and some simple stone benches included in the budget. So that means less work for, our understaffed parks department. And then Teens Inc. Teamworks crew are very keen on collaborating with the town on the creation of both the trails and also, hopefully, a natural playscape using sustainable materials. And this is kind of just a little crude little Photoshop job of one of the sustainable play structures that we're looking at right now. This is one of the artists under consideration. His name is Jason Fan. He creates these play structures he calls them spirit nests. Slide. So the teens crew would be employed to build something similar to this, and they would learn the skills while part of their work. This artist, he teaches adolescents and youths. He teaches woodworking, building techniques, leadership skills. He's Waldorf kind of trained, so this is something he does. He's also keen on working on a sliding scale if possible. He's willing to lead the Teamworks crew building a small playscape, something similar to the one at Wright. These play structures use natural materials sustainably harvested. They require very little to no maintenance at all for years and years. This artist says he has a long history of installing many of these across the country, and he's not heard accounts of them being abused. In his experience, these little natural playscape sculptures become treasured features and very protected by the community. I have a little quote from Electra here, from the Nederland Community Library Director. She says the opportunities afforded by this incredible grant, opportunities such as development of the western shoreline of Barca Reservoir, would provide invaluable space for expanding library services and building a strong, engaged community. A public recreational space at the shoreline of the reservoir would provide limitless opportunities for library programming and outreach well beyond this COVID time. Slide. So a big part of this grant is also going to be going towards urgent upgrades to the Chapter Park restrooms, touchless amenities, airflow upgrades that will allow for those facilities to reopen, and touchless soap dispensers, water, foot pedals on the door, those kind of things going into that. So their goal is just to safely reopen those restrooms, which is going to be hugely crucial, providing our community and parks visitors with toilets, hand washing, and upgraded drinking fountains. Okay, slide. I think this is the last one. So according to a 3-year Soul of the Community study, perception of a community's performance in social offerings, openness and beauty, which includes the availability of parks and green spaces, has a greater impact on emotional bonds to a place than demographic characteristics. So the goal is just to follow 2020 Envision statements, and then Netherlands recreational development will address issues such as the promotion of non-motorised travel, clean air, clean water, minimal or reduced light and noise pollution, focused community education programmes and stewardship to reduce environmental impact. This project will help Netherlands preserve and protect its natural resources while responsibly managing active recreation and limiting negative impact from overuse in certain zones. Barca Meadows Park is truly a shared community space, and the current moment is the right time to preserve its natural beauty while also providing vital outdoor opportunities. So that is basically it. Sorry, I went through that really fast. I know I feel like you probably know most of this stuff, but it basically is just a long-planned local vision, talking about how it's more urgent now due to the effects of the pandemic, and how about equitable access to the outdoors is essential. Definitely like to get some feedback and like to hear your thoughts on this, and then maybe we should ask you any specific questions too. And I don't know if Miranda wants to talk about the timeline at all or any of the budget.
Yeah, I didn't have those things pulled up. So let me just briefly talk timeline. So we are submitting the grant in October with the goal of having it awarded in November. I'm like, I don't even know where I have it saved. I have it somewhere. But for the timeline, what we're really focused on is doing kind of spending the winter months doing some of the design phase. Let me share my screen here. So you'll see, so when awarded, because that's happening 100%, we're going to get the design and plan and kind of secure the volunteers. And then the bulk of the work is really occurring between April and October of next year. Obviously, can't do much in the winter. With the project being fully completed in November 2021. That was definitely looked upon favorably when we were talking with GOCO because they were looking for grants that are ready to be executed. So it's really nice that our public works team feels motivated and able to do the work next year. So let me pull open really quick the budget and I'll be pretty fast. So we're still kind of tweaking some numbers. So sorry, ignore the top. I haven't finished this yet. But in essence, between park amenities, the bathrooms, irrigation, labor, and materials, we're asking for just shy of $350,000. In terms of our in-kind, primarily that's coming from the labor and equipment of public works. There is no need for a cash match. However, we do have, the Eldora funds and Dillon developers in-kind supports. So again, we are looking for $350,000 for this grant, and then with our in-kind, we do meet the overall match. Only 10% is required, and we would be contributing $174,000 in in-kind. So this is kind of what we're operating with. We do have kind of a contingent budget that reduces some of the amounts we would get in terms of crusher fine and trees and native plants, as well as the number of benches and picnic tables if we needed to decrease the amount being asked for, and that then drops us down to 330. So we're kind of playing with two budgets at the moment, but our ask is going to be that 350,000.
Which is, we dropped that.
We dropped that. At one point in time, it was 450,000. So we really cut a lot of 100,000, just because when we had shared the 350 with the GOCO, which they felt good about that number, when we came back and said, oh, it might be more closer to 450, just that kind of their hesitation and their response made us concerned that might push us into a bracket where they don't consider us. So bringing it back to the 350 was what was appropriate.
Yeah, it's a highly competitive cycle, so we definitely want to try and go in as strong as we can.
Yeah.
And it's different from all the previous years they've done this. So there's things that are being included. We can now apply for a few specific not attached items, like the lawnmower we've included on there, and a trail grader machine.
And a part-time public works staff member who would be dedicated specifically to parks. Since our current parks team, has a variety of different jobs that they do within their job description, and then also help with the streets department. So it'd be nice to have someone who's really committed just to park maintenance. So you guys are our last board and commission we're going to present to the Board of Trustees, but the last advisory board. So we're looking to see if you guys have questions or feedback or things you want us to think about as we move forward.
I do have just a couple things to touch on. I think it's fantastic. All of this is really simple stuff to be done that's needed to be done for quite a while, so it's great to try and tackle that. Have you, Miranda, heard of EnviroWag?
No, but Chris is on. Chris, I have not.
So they service some places in Boulder and Denver, like the dog parks in Boulder and stuff.
Was this the compostable one that you were looking at once?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I can send you the link, Jesse, but they're called EnviroWag, and they work out a collection and then they compost it. And I'm not sure exactly all the details. They don't really have how they work with municipalities on their website. It just says call and talk to us for more details. But that would be something cool to check out. At least if we could get like their compostable bags or something into our waste stations at the minimum, or if they have a good recommendation for bags to buy, that would be great. The other thing is just like when looking at plants, what types of plants have you guys looked at, or have you looked at any so far?
You know, not really. We've just spoke to Rhea a little bit, and she's kind of given us a list of trees, like recommended trees. So it's all native trees, and then that is as far as we've got. So that is like definitely one of the specific plant like things we wanted to come to you guys with, to try and get a list of, or hopefully maybe some recommended shrubs or flowers, perennials, that kind of thing. And then the other question we did have for you was about wind resistance and about establishing plants in this particular area, because there's a few tips in like the ProSab master plan about establishing plants and about how to do that for the first 2 years. But we've had some people saying that it's just going to be impossible to plant trees in that area due to the wind. But I don't, the general consensus is it's not impossible to plant trees down there, but we would have to take the wind factor into consideration.
Yeah, there's a list of different plants that I'll pull out from our old document, that would be just a list of suggested species of flowers, edible berries that grow at like 6,000 or 7,000 feet. So I don't know if they're worth it, but it might be cool to look into. Yeah. And then what was the other thing you said? Oh, trees. We kind of struggled back and forth with, should we put in, a row of aspens as sort of a windbreak for some things, but then it also blocks the view. So I think you just gotta pick and choose where the trees might be out of the view and also have some sort of block, and put multiples together rather than just one tree somewhere. It seems if you put a couple trees together, they fare better in the wind. So that's my personal suggestions. And I guess I will just, since we're virtual, go down the list of other SAB members to see if they have any questions or comments. So, Alvin, you're here.
I'm here. I'm on the calls, but I'm not in front of the screen, so I'm curious if the slides are available.
I can email. I just sent them to Garrett. I can email these slides, and there's also a ton of stuff on our website, so I would encourage you guys to check that out if you haven't yet. But I'll email the slides to everyone.
Yeah, if you go to the Town of Nederland website, there's a little icon on that first page now that says like GoCo Resilient Communities Program, and that'll have the links to the presentation of the slides that we just gave, and then the actual like draft narrative, and the timeline and all that stuff.
Everything I heard presented sounds really good. I'm curious about the details specifically around the trails, and then what you guys looking to do with retrofit the Barca Meadow. The idea is presented, going with low maintenance plants, setting up irrigation, nature-based playscapes. I like it. Also including money for the bathroom for Chipeta. That's awesome. So good work, guys. Thank you.
All right. Next is Hunter.
Hi there. Yes. I think this looks amazing. I mean, you had me at spiritness. Those things look so cool. They're like works of art. So I love those. And I really appreciate you sharing this with us. I'm just curious, is there a bike? Is there, and maybe I missed it, but is there like a bike area or like a bike route that connects the different areas?
Just on this plan, there's just bike racks, and then the trails are bike accessible too.
So
But I will say that if you're interested in bike park stuff, that's going to be the subject of the next Parks and Rec meeting. We're going to be talking about that a lot. We have somebody in town who may be interested in donating excavation services to a different area in town, possibly near the ice rink, possible bike park.
that's great. Thank you.
Okay. Erica?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Jesse, I'm just really impressed. I really appreciate all of the thoughtfulness and detail that went into this, and it feels like it's really appropriate timing, having been working on this plan for a few years now. I'm just really excited to support ProSab in any way that we can from the SAB board, and really appreciate coming to us with such a well thought out and professional presentation. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Reed?
Yeah, I think the plan looks great. As I was initially listening to it, I was concerned about the irrigation, but then when you explained that, how you really went, I know the irrigation was a big deal. Sounds like you guys did a good job listening to people and coming up with a solution. So I think it's great.
Yeah, the irrigation was definitely something that, I mean, I think there's quite a few environmentally minded people on the ProSab at the moment. So the irrigation is kind of has been a big concern. But it's been about trying to find recommendations. And I know you have Chris working with you quite some time. So hopefully we can work with Chris and Public Works a bit more as we move forward, because we're hoping not to have to use, fresh water. We're hoping to be able to use treated water to try and keep this as sustainable as possible.
Yeah, I remember that one of the big issues from the community was the festivals and driving trucks out there. And, and I know, so it sounds like you're working through that.
Yeah, we're working with a couple of the festival organizers, and they're still definitely concerned about that. But we have, our Public Works head, she's really confident that we can lay the lines in a way that wouldn't affect the ability of the festivals to put in like the industrial stakes that those big festivals need, and it certainly wouldn't affect smaller events. So we're hoping not. And one of the festival organizers came back and said that having grass would be a big draw for festivals. So yeah, it's been a tricky balance, I think, that bit.
I have a couple comments.
Yeah.
I was just going to get to you.
Okay. Well, first of all, I love the pictures in that presentation. I think they're really beautiful. If you're a fan of Nederland, you could really appreciate those photos. So those are really nice. The dog poop composting, I have heard presentations on RCAP in Boulder about a company that does dog poop composting, and it was a really catchy name. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but yeah, I don't remember exactly. I think there might be a couple out there, but that would be cool to explore. I'm not sure if it would be economical up here, but I think there could be a way to incorporate that at the wastewater plant. The other thing was that I've had limited success in planting trees at the wastewater plant without irrigation. I did plant a lot of aspen the first year that we constructed the wastewater plant and watered them the first year. And they actually took pretty well. They naturally take to this kind of environment. So I think, well-placed aspen trees could do really well, up here, especially with irrigation. And that's something I'd like to work with reclaimed water from the wastewater plant, at least around the perimeter of the wastewater facility. So I think that could be successful. And I think, and the last thing was that I have been in communication with a person, a local a solar person here, and his company is called Lumos. And I know a lot of you know who he is, but he works out of the place on Big Springs Drive, HubNed, and he's very interested in putting solar facilities around to try to get exposure for his company, and he's reached out to me to do that. So connect with me, Jesse, and I can connect you with him, and maybe one of his facilities could be incorporated into the park. He's got one right now at the train cars. It's like a kind of a solar shelter that you can plug your computer in. Yeah, exactly. And he actually has a desire to move that around. And then he also donated the shelter for the bus shelter there on the corner of Big Springs Drive and the highway. Wow. So he's motivated to sort of get his product out to the community and bike shelters, and he's got all kinds of stuff that he does. I can connect you with him as well.
Yeah, very cool.
That was it.
No, that's very helpful. Some of the plant questions have kind of thrown us a little bit. So we added mulch after one suggestion. Just kind of little things like that are going to be helpful. So trees are good. And you guys are going to send a list over?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, that was my main questions. Thank you very much.
Garrett, do you have any comments or suggestions?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah, so excellent presentation. I was curious, what was your community engagement process like? How were you able to identify these community needs?
Yeah, I mean, I could talk a little bit about just the most recent one. So this cycle has been really a really quick cycle. They only just released their strategic plan a couple of months ago. I think it was in June they released their strategic plan. So this is all kind of moved forward pretty quickly. But I don't think I've even got the list in front of me. But it was September 1st we did a presentation in front of right before the BOT meeting. We have presented in front of the DDA meeting. We had a walkabout down on Gershio Field. We've had a couple of meetings just at Chipeta Park Pavilion with Nikki has been there for that. We have a leaflet that we started distributing, a trifold kind of leaflet just with information on. We've had an article in the newspaper, and just the stakeholder outreach, really. This is kind of some of those groups that I listed at the beginning. The Netherlands Library, Alps Coaching, Wild Bear, Teens Inc., New Explorers, Health and Human Services, the Netherlands Area Seniors. Those kind of groups, several more, I think. But so we think we estimated that we've reached out. We've had feedback. We've reached out and we've contacted around 100 people within the last month, I would say. But yeah, these are solidly vetted items from the previous plan already. So these were items that had already been vetted through in the past. There's nothing new here from previous plans that have.
Are these? Is that from like a Netherlands comprehensive plan or?
Yeah, the 2013 Netherlands Parks Recreation Open Space Master Plan, Parks Master Plan.
Perfect.
So,
great. Yeah, it's that's helpful. Where as the sustainability coordinator, I'm always trying to figure out how to launch different programs. So it's nice to hear how you've gone about getting, I mean, this is truly a comprehensive grant application. And so it's great to hear how you were able to go about designing it.
Yeah, a little bit, social media mixed with kind of just traditional print outreach, and then just being there at a certain time for people to show up and speak.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thanks, Garrett.
Great. Well, any last questions for us at all, Jesse?
No, that is exceptionally helpful. I probably would like to kind of maybe just keep touching base with you in the future about some of these things, especially when we get to more detail. Especially, like, I think we would be really interested in the idea of compostable dog waste, if possible, and just to make sure that we don't do anything that would prohibit, moving towards sustainability in the future. I think is important to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I think once the proposal is submitted and we get word back, I think we definitely want to stay updated on how the process is moving along, what materials you guys are choosing and using and what's going on, with all those more specific details that aren't hammered out yet.
Yeah, if there's any awesome grants that you guys come across that could, play hand in hand with any of this development, that would be awesome.
Yeah, there's definitely a couple companies in Boulder that I think I want to reach out to as far as plants, seeds, etc., and what they might be willing to offer. So yeah.
Thank you. Awesome, Melody.
Thank you.
I had one more question actually before you go, Jesse.
Yeah.
The development of the performance space. I noticed that it's fairly generic and no true grading plan, which is understandable. I was wondering if, in your mind, the that area would be flattened out to a more sort of flatter, usable space, or were you going to try to stick with the original concept of a bowl type design?
Yeah, I mean, from our last talk with Nikki on the last walk around we did, it was kind of just a hybrid approach. So maybe not quite of such an extreme ball, so that it wouldn't become such a swamp, and then also so that it would be a bit more accessible to events, but then so that nothing would be built there or anything, so nothing could prohibit if the DDA did pull together a plan that they wanted to put in. There's nothing that should prohibit a future amphitheater from being put into that space, like not even any trees planted in that area.
I see. Well, it'll be really important to sort of kind of flesh that out, because I do. Obviously, there's a big pile of topsoil there that we'd like to utilize, native topsoil that we'd like to utilize for planting in the future. But also, I do have access to soil frequently, and could regrade that potentially in any way that we want. So I just want to kind of keep that in mind, that if there's a desire to flatten it or do something different, it'd be good to just keep me abreast of it.
Yeah, and even it would like to be good to keep in touch with the farmers market folks, see if how, and all these other event space, to see how that would be usable, because it would be pretty tricky right now to get down into that. But the ball is so steep at the moment, so I'm sure a little bit of minor grading, that's something that I think we should connect on, the stormwater drainage and that fun stuff.
That was it.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Jesse, for joining us.
Thank you, Melody.
All right. So now we move on to Garrett and all his everything.
All right. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. So the first agenda item is Solar Energy International. I put together a draft application, sent it to Melody, I just got that back. I sort of scanned it. Melody, did you have any discussion items on that, or are we pretty much ready to send that off?
I didn't have a whole lot more to add than you.
Okay.
Just some minor notes and then adding in my contact info that they needed there. So I think generally I'd like to just look at what the board thinks about moving forward with that and what kind of main approach we want to take. As we're talking about in there, it's a kind of marketing promotion, helping us put forth a community engagement plan to get a bunch of people to either put on rooftop solar or band together to do some sort of solar project together, and somehow work with businesses. So I don't know if you want to explain that more, Garrett, in detail, but I think my main, I know last time they were with the Solar Forward program, the school solar option, and then they also had like a community solar garden engagement option. And I think, we wanted to look at both of those as top solar additions. So that's what I gotta say on that.
Oh, sure. And I'm not sure about the community garden aspect. I'll have to follow up with them on that. But I know, because we're working with the Crestone Baca area right now, and it really is just a residential program for individual households to sign up. We work with whoever, like whatever installers want to participate. There's sort of an agreed upon price per watt. So it's really just a marketing campaign to get as many Nederland residents to sign up as possible. But I'll have to follow up on the community garden aspect. I'm not sure about that. But I agree that we probably need to go in front of the board to get a resolution on this. Is that right? Can you hear me?
Can hear you.
Hey, can you all hear me? I lost Melody when she was talking.
I can hear you.
Okay, cool. Maybe that was Melody's side. So do we need to go in front of the board to present to them, provide them some information about the campaign, and get a formal resolution on this?
I don't know if we lost Melody. My assumption is yes. And it sounded like Melody was saying yes.
Perfect. So do we need to do a vote from the SAB to for a motion to send this to the BOT? Or I don't know how that works.
Yes, that is preferred, that there's a motion and then it's voted on.
I guess before the vote, does anybody have questions about the SEI program?
Any questions out there? This is Erica.
And just so everybody knows, I am basically an intern for Solar Energy International. So there is I guess you might call it a conflict of interest. I'm not quite sure, but I think it's advantageous for Netherlands because I work for SEI, so I'm already doing this stuff. So I'm just making sure everybody is aware of that.
I would call it a combination of interest, not a conflict of interest.
Exactly. There you go, Reese.
I'd agree. I still appreciate the transparency. That said, yeah, SEI is a great group. If we just want to, so if we're taking a vote, I'll make a motion that we take a vote real quick so we can make a official resolution and move forward.
Second your motion. Miranda, did you hear the second?
We could do a vote. Alvin?
Yes.
Erica?
Yes.
Hunter?
Sorry, yes.
Reed?
Yes.
I vote yes too. Thank you, Garrett.
Great. So, Miranda, when do you think this would be available to present to the board?
I mean, I think it would be ideal to present to the board on October 6th, since you're already coming back for the Sustainability Coordinator and Mountain Resiliency Coalition. Is it possible to get me stuff by Wednesday, the 30th?
Okay, so you need the packet by
The
Wednesday,
30th. Yeah.
No, that sounds great.
Okay, cool.
I will get that together. And then, Chris Pelletier, you mentioned you had a contact from Lumos. I hadn't connected with them. It'd be great if you could send me their contact or maybe just a greeting email. We'd love to leverage, that local solar installer and make sure he's on board with this.
Yeah, sure. I'll send it over to you.
Perfect.
Hey, Garrett. There was a previous meeting with myself, Jen, Hunter. Chris, were you at that meeting with Lumos when they showed us their warehouse and some of their demos?
I wasn't at that meeting, but I have connected with Lumos on the side and have been to their warehouse and so forth. So, but I haven't been a part of the SAB's meeting.
Okay. I wasn't sure if that was SAB or Climate Together Netherlands, but we did have a meeting with them about doing some installations around town. So it would be refreshing that idea, and I could look for some notes from that meeting. Hunter, do you have something from that too?
Let me check. I think I have the presentation that or maybe it's just their catalog. I think I have a digital copy of the catalog that I could share with the group.
That'd be awesome.
Okay.
They're solar architects, right? They don't necessarily do installs. They do like unique architectural designs with solar panels.
I think
they changed?
like structure, yeah, with solar panels and electric wiring in them.
Cool. Yeah. So maybe they wouldn't actually be doing the installs. Yeah. If you could send me some information, that would be great.
Yeah, I think Namaste was one of the main installers that we talked to as well.
Cool. Yeah, I've heard of Namaste.
Yeah, Namaste actually came and did a walkthrough for the wastewater treatment plant. And we talked about some other options in town at that time. And I think did they send us an actual bid, Chris? Because it'd be good to share that with Garrett.
Yeah, they did. I have a quote from them for a solar installation at the wastewater plant.
Great. That'd be helpful to share, just so we don't have to rewrite anything. Because there was a lot of research done with the wastewater treatment plant and just different kind of ideas about transmission lines and who might be interested in adding resources towards it. That's kind of how Lumos got involved, because Scott Franklin lives right off Ridge Road. He's a local.
Yeah, actually, his kid went to school with mine. I've known him for a while. We actually used to, every time his kid would come over, there used to be this cartoon called Franklin, and we'd sing the song, and Here Comes Franklin, every time his kid would come over. So I've known him for a while.
That's awesome. So cool. Yeah. So send me that information. That'd be awesome. All right. If there are no other questions, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which I believe is the electric vehicle charging stations. So Chris and I are tag teaming that. We are getting quotes from electric vehicle charging station installers. I'm learning a ton about EV stations. There's a 124 kilowatt charging station, and there's another 184. And you can actually charge 2 cars at the same time. So for a 180 kilowatt system, you can charge each car at 90 kilowatts. So we've got $50,000 in grant money to spend on this. So we are getting 3 competitive bids. So hopefully, I would say by the end of October, we should certainly have a vendor selected.
Sounds great, guys.
Yeah, and I will add too on the topic of Lumos. I did meet with Scott to talk about the project, the TIP project, and he offered the idea of a solar shelter, not necessarily directly connected with the charger necessarily, but sort of to show that solar can offset some of the electricity that the charger is producing. And just wanted to put that out there. It's maybe that could be part of the project.
So that would be tied to the grid, or is that feeding directly into the charging station?
Just tied to the grid. It really would be 2 separate things, but having them right next to each other might kind of, I don't know, make it look like solar is contributing to the charging stations, and they are in a indirect kind of way.
That's interesting. Would Excel allow that to happen?
Sounds like he's done this before.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you'd have to meter that, so you'd have to understand how much solar is going back into the grid. So I don't know if there's any cost to the town for that.
Yeah, I'll send you his contact, and
Okay.
it's sort of a separate side project from the chargers. They're not necessarily connected, but the fact that they're kind of shelters for the parking spaces make them seem like that.
Oh, so they're covered parking spaces then?
Yes.
Oh, awesome. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. So the next agenda item, let's see here. I've got green buildings. I'm not actually sure what the agenda items.
So on here, Garrett, you've got the Mountain Resilience Coalition engagement update.
Okay. Yeah, that's quick. That has been delayed. There was a lot of conversation on the multifamily unit being proposed on the west side of town. So we actually didn't get to either the Mountain Resilient Coalition agenda item nor the Boulder County Sustainability Grant discussion item either. So both of those have been pushed to, let's see here, October 6th, right, Maria? Yes.
Correct. Yeah, October 6th.
So, yep. So that's the update on that. Is the green buildings the next one?
No, you had 2019 to 2021 Sustainability Action Plan.
Great. So, yeah, I was looking at the 2019-2021 goals, and there are 4 categories: community agriculture. I actually sent those items to Melody, and she offered her comments on potential actions based on those goals. There's renewable energy and energy efficiency, waste diversion, and ecosystems assessment. I don't know if the SAB has done this in the past, but it might be worthwhile in kind of setting up some focus groups to focus on each one of these areas of sustainability, mainly for the purpose of what are some concrete actions that I can take. You know, it's been 8 months. I've got, 4 months left on, the current contract. And so it'd be great to meet with sort of a subgroup of SAB to talk about each one of each item, and then sort of report back to the SAB at the monthly meeting. What are you guys' thoughts about creating sort of subgroups on different areas of sustainability?
We've had the the community agriculture subcommittee before. And then more recently, there's kind of an ad hoc, no-name community agriculture group that I have some contacts with that's like Victory Gardens and the food pantry and some local farmers and gardeners as far out as Gold Hill, as well as myself. And then other things, there was the more community, completely community organized, you guys, CAN, right? And then other things, we haven't really done it officially. So I'd love to have you be able to put some structure to how that might move and progress forward. And I think we can definitely work on filling in who might be great people to reach out to, as well as stakeholders.
Yeah, that sounds good. I would certainly be a representative at every single one of these subcommittees. So I would be sort of the facilitator, agenda setter, and responsible for sort of bringing this information back to the larger SAB group. I think just having a subcommittee sort of gets into the weeds of sustainability actions that we don't necessarily have time for our monthly SAB call. So if you all are willing, I can send out I could share a document, and you can sign up for whatever area that you are particularly interested in. And I expect we would just meet monthly, to talk about that specific area. And then we would also meet for our, regular SAB meeting. So it would add another hour meeting, so, if you could commit to that, we'd also, obviously talk about your schedules and that sort of thing. So if that works for you all, that certainly works for me. So that sounds great. Are there any other comments sort of formally putting together subcommittees for each of these different areas?
Hey, Garrett, this is Erica. As you're talking, I feel like this is a really great idea and would help us really focus our actions and energy on very specific tasks with very specific goals in mind. But it also brings me to the dilemma that we've come across many times before is, you know, we have these other things that take a lot of time as well. And I'm just kind of wondering how valuable they are and if we should probably reassess some of the other things that take staff members' energy and efforts right now. For example, the PI meetings, you know, is PI still a valuable thing to have every 2 weeks? Are we getting that much out of it? You know, also thinking about the list that you sent around of the action items from the CU capstone group. You know, I personally would like to see very deliberate actions on a number of those things. And I just don't feel like we have the space to necessarily go after those things, whatever we decide they are, just because we are spread thin with other initiatives like PI, or really it's just PI. But also the MOU was mentioned in that, and some of our work with Excel, and just kind of where I think it might be time for a reassess. What does everybody else think about that?
This is Hunter. I completely agree. I think that it would be a great exercise for us to maybe put it on the next, I mean, I don't know if next month is too long, but to do like a session of prioritizing like what SAB really wants to focus on, and then figuring out what the time commitment is and making it happen. So yeah, I completely agree, and I would be behind doing that as well.
Erica, I hear you, which is why I'm sort of pushing for, you know, let's look at our sustainability goals. Let's figure out, you know, specific actions that we can take. That's why I brought the CU document to life. I want to, if we have like a resource/portfolio meeting for next month, I would like to present sort of a list of renewable energy actions, you know, sort of already identified by CU and with all your comments, and sort of do like an impact effort matrix just to show you like, well, this is the highest impact with the least effort. You know, that's pretty low hanging fruit. Let's pursue this. So if it's okay with you guys, I would like to, you know, we could start with a list of sort of our renewable energy actions, and we can, you know, go from there.
Yeah, I think that sounds great. I think just being aware of my own preference and what I gravitate towards, I just would want to make sure that we are divided equally amongst those goals that we have as a group. And I guess with that said, if we all decide we want to go for agriculture and energy, like, so be it. That's going to make the most sense. But I totally agree. I think it's time to reassess, and I would love to get a matrix from you of where you think our energy is most valuable and most impactful, especially because we have a 2025 goal of being 100% off renewable electricity for the town of Nederland.
Right, and just we are likely going to be partnering with the Mountain Resilience Coalition, and they will be doing a lot of the fundamental sort of groundwork, sort of sustainability planning. So they're going to be looking at, you know, what are our largest CO2 emitters? You know, how, you know, what percentage of cars are electric versus non-electric? So we'll get a lot of good data from that engagement with the Mountain Resilience Coalition. So I think that'll be a major input into what our I mean, I guess I could call it a 2021 work plan, you know, something like that. So yeah, I think looking at the 2019, 2021 goals, and then also inputs from the Mountain Resilience Coalition, I think that could really feed into a comprehensive sustainability program.
That sounds great. Thank you so much, Garrett.
I agree too, and I'd love to hear Alvin and Reed's thoughts on this, and Melody, what you're thinking. But also, just as a tangent, I also think that helps motivation too when we have very clear goals and a very comprehensive plan of how to get to those goals. So just for, you know, dealing with all the other things we have on our plate now, I think it just helps kind of feed the efforts that we do all have for sustainability in our town. So thank you.
I would be willing to be on a subcommittee, go along with. I mean, I would go ahead and I would be willing to follow along any effort we decide to take.
Awesome. Alvin, what are your thoughts?
I tend to think that meetings should be a last resort, especially when we have to be complying with sunshine laws with all of our communications, which just makes everything more difficult. That, you know, myself, I know I'm extremely constrained these days for time. I'm gathering that's kind of standard with everybody. If we come back and if we hold some focus and put in our, you know, really decide where do we want to put our effort, I think that's going to be a better use of our time right now. So that, because it's really easy to want a lot of things and it's a lot harder to actually accomplish a lot of things. But it's, you know, if we focus on a few, we can move the bar pretty far if we have to.
I hear you, Alvin. Melody, what are your thoughts?
I obviously am connected to the kind of community agriculture world, so I'm super happy to work on that and stay connected with those folks. I'm not sure if monthly is necessary for all of these subcommittees, but we can certainly try.
Okay.
One more thought. I do like the idea of breaking down into this kind of a structure. But historically through Nederland, it's been much easier to do things through nonprofits than through official town channels. So if there's a way to be able to partner with nonprofits and come in as representatives of town for a nonprofit organization, I'm not sure if that starts introducing a gray area in terms of how easy it is to actually execute upon plans that come together through those kinds of meetings.
Yeah, no, I think we leverage nonprofits when we can. I think we leverage all the resources we can. I'm based on the feedback, I would propose we take a look at all of the things going on. So that includes the goals and our existing commitments. And then we sort of identify who would be a good resource to help out with. I mean, Melody obviously, you know, wants to do community agriculture. Erica, I'm signing her up for renewable energy. I'm just kidding. But, you know, like, I think that rather than just kicking off subcommittees because we have these defined categories of goals, maybe we take a step back and we talk about that again to see sort of what's the priority and who would be willing to participate in a working group? So maybe next month we can, get a prioritized list of all our projects, talk about timeline and then talk about resources. And if we can, if we have enough resources to put a committee together, then great. If not, then that's fine too. How does that sound with you all?
That sounds great to me, Garrett. And I just want to add another tangent. I was listening to the radio today. NPR had on a CEO of a large bank, and they were just saying, based on this guy's position, when he talks, other people listen. And he was basically saying that, working from home is this great advantage for lots of things, but it really misses out on collaborative, creative thought and group out of the box processing. And I think just with that in the back of my mind, I think that these subgroups could also allow us for more of those out of the box ideas that we have had over the years, the entire time the SAB board's been around. And it might be a really refreshing way to interact as a group, even just if it's small numbers of us with nonprofits, but to really tackle some of these hard questions that we have, like how do we get the rest of our energy to renewable in Netherlands? How do we liaison with Excel? How do we figure out, to use what we already have as such an asset in our community in a way that we haven't thought of before to accomplish our goals? So I think it could be a really good way to just collaborate in a new way, since we haven't been able to be in person for a long time now.
I agree, Erica. And just me not being in Netherlands, I really rely on input from the SAB and that perspective. So really you're helping me out with identifying, stakeholders and different avenues. So it's not necessarily like, hey, I'm tasking you with, as a subcommittee member, I'm tasking you with all of these things. It's really, I'm asking you to provide your perspective, because that really helps me out.
I think that all sounds fantastic, Garrett. Thank you so much.
Could I throw something quick in? Public comment?
Yeah.
Hi, Jesse. Sorry, just if you're talking about sustainability action plan and goals, it'd be awesome if you could throw in a couple of parks related things. I know we're talking a lot about non-motorized transportation at the moment, and I know the DDA and the ProSAB are talking about walkability and connectivity, just to get people out and walk in and out of their cars. And we're also discussing pocket parks, so maybe you might have some ideas about what we might want to do with some of the pocket parks. We've been throwing out some just discussion ideas, like things like community berry gardens. There is a lot of pocket parks, noxious weed removal, and we could definitely help identify the stakeholder connections too that we've been working on, Garrett, for that side of things. That's all. Thanks.
Perfect. Yeah, I don't see the SAB working in its silo. Sustainability literally touches all aspects of town planning. So, my hope is that I can, liaison with various commissions, so on and so forth. So I certainly want to see resources, not just SAB resources, but nonprofits, other commissions, that sort of thing. So thank you, Jesse.
Yeah, totally. Thanks, Garrett.
Great. So renewable energy, the next agenda item. So I guess, the 2019-2021 Sustainability Action Plan, we will, for next month, I will prepare sort of a list of actions based on, the 2019 goals, and as well as the renewable energy strategies. I'll try to put together a nice visual so you'll be able to see, effort compared to impact. And at that point, we can run through an exercise on, is this important? If so, when is a good time? And so we can sort of start work planning. So if we can have that as an agenda item for next month, that would be great. The next agenda item is renewable energy strategies. If you haven't done so, please take a look at that Google Doc that I shared. Looks like Laura, Erica, Alan, they've added comments. So thank you. This is really, CU Boulder put this document together. I can't remember when. It was a while ago. And so I just wanted an update on, are these things worth pursuing? Because they're all labeled as pursue in the big document that CU put together. So if you have perspective on it, please take a few minutes, look over them, add your comments. I will be using those comments and that information to present those ideas at our next sustainability planning meeting. That's all I really wanted to talk about as far as renewable action. Did anybody have any other comments on this agenda item?
Hey Garrett, it's Erica. Obviously, again, I'm biased. I feel like if we could pursue all of these at the same time, that would be great. So it'd be helpful to see, what you think is our biggest, our best investment at this point. But I also wanted to throw out there, I wanted to ask Miranda, is there any way that we can meet in person as a board? Have there been any updates with that, as long as we're socially distanced?
Yeah, I mean, if that's something SAB wants to do, we are following the guidelines of Boulder County, at least for the Board of Trustees level. But it is an option if you wanted to find a way to meet. Now, I don't think you have to probably do it somewhere other than the community center, because they don't have the staff to be able to, follow through with all the guidelines. That's going to be your challenge, is like location. Like if we were able to meet earlier and in the day and at Chipeta, that would be preferred.
Gotcha. What about the library?
Yeah, if you feel like if they're willing to accommodate and they can, adhere to just like the cleaning, the social distancing protocols, then that's absolutely an option as well.
And I know that we have members that probably, shouldn't attend in person. And again, that's their choice. But I'm just thinking if we could have just a few of us in a room to discuss some of these things that CU identified, that might be helpful, because a lot of these came from conversation and, interviewing stakeholders, Garrett. But a lot of them also came from their classes and talking to advisors and working through this document that they created and getting edits and feedback on it from people at CU. So I'm just wondering, if people would be interested, if we could do some kind of in-person to really kind of narrow down what our best investment is. Because I myself, when I went through that list, was a little overwhelmed. Like, these are all great ideas. I just don't know, if I had to put them into a list from 1 to 10, I would have no idea really where to start.
I would really only be into a meeting in person if we did it outside somewhere.
I would totally be willing to meet in person, and I could do it earlier in the day, so we could do it outside. I could make anything work. So yeah.
Erica, I was having a similar thought as you just this morning, of that it's really hard to not be able to have talked to you guys physically face to face in over 6 months now. and still try to remain present and engaged and understand like where these projects are moving. So I think it would be helpful if we can't do, you know, an entire group meeting, even doing 2 or 3 people at a time meeting somewhere in kind of these smaller breakout groups. I think would be fantastic to try to arrange something.
Or Melody, I was even thinking that those of us that were comfortable meeting in person could meet in person, and then we could also just have a phone and with a speaker on for those that didn't want to attend in person, so that it would just kind of offer a different dynamic. So, and we can talk about this offline as well. But it just seems like, you know, that list, Garrett, it's just pretty thick and chewy. The different options that you identified, and it's just like I can imagine it's hard for people to just kind of look through that and be like, what's the context? You know, because I was working pretty closely with this U group for the time that they were with us, and it still just feels really intense to go to try to identify like what should we really put our energy towards.
Right.
I like that idea. It sounds completely related to the segue to the previous discussion about like kind of reviewing what are our current priorities. How do we want to focus?
So I think maybe, I mean, I agree with Alvin that, yeah, I think this falls in line with, you know, identifying a work plan. I guess, you know, Erica's talking about providing perspective and getting into the meat and bones of each one of these initiatives might be pretty time consuming, which might be hard to do at our monthly SAB meetings. So I would say, like, let's try to talk through our potential work plan next SAB meeting and see where we lie. If there's a smaller group that wants to get together and get into the nitty gritty on renewable energy, then I think that would be totally appropriate.
But it's got to be posted if it's more than 2 people.
Right. Yep.
For the case of crunching through a work plan, earlier in the day at Japita, I'd be down with having an extra meeting sometime in the next month before the next scheduled SAB meeting, so we could actually follow through with that idea. And then maybe at the SAB meeting, we can start gathering together like who wants to try and take and dedicate to any given priority.
That sounds great, Alvin.
I can send over a survey to SAB members and to see what day time works for folks. I'll be honest, my time is pretty tight. My wife is going to work full time, and that means I'm taking care of my 8-month-old. So during the day is sort of when I'm on daddy duty, and I pretty much work at night. But you know, Tuesdays and Fridays are really good for me. So let me send that out to you all, and let me see if we can find something within the next 2-3 weeks. How about that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Great. Awesome. And then, so the last agenda item on my list is sustainable green buildings. I don't know, in the last BOT meeting, it was, extremely long. They talked about the MFU, the multifamily unit being proposed, and I was pleasantly surprised how much discussion there were about sustainable building and sustainable building design. And so I want to know, what has the SAB done in the past as far as green buildings, and how much involvement have you been with sort of maybe with the town planner or DDA on sustainable building practices?
So I know that the town passed a resolution that all new town of Nederland owned construction needs to adhere to LEED Gold standards without having to go through the necessary certification process, but just adhering to those same standards. But as far as other building codes, we were a part of the process when the code was updated in 2013 or 2014. We were a part of that process and making recommendations. For example, saying, no, we shouldn't require fire sprinklers in every residential house, like is required elsewhere, and some other things like that. But we haven't made a concerted effort that I know of to really look at what are the design standards we want to incentivize and look for. And I think Alan also mentioned that he wanted this on the agenda because it came up at that last board meeting. And I as well was super impressed and super happy with all the questions that were asked about these kind of new constructions, and that our board right now is probably the board to put forth some sort of proposal about design standards too, because I think they would approve it and move forward with us on that. So I'd love to hear other SAB members' thoughts on green design and how far we really want to go on this and how much time we want to spend on it, or if we just want to say we want to pull design standards from these one or two other companies and go with those recommendations.
Hey, Melody, this is Erica. I also was really impressed with the board and the great questions they had for the Little Bear development. And really, really happy to hear that they were going to restrict the height. I was driving through there today, and I just can't imagine a big building there and limiting the views for other residents. But my thoughts are pretty limited. My experience is pretty limited. But I was thinking something that was more dynamic would be a positive thing for Nederland, because people do talk about the cost of updating the building codes and how that would really limit what residents could do and who would be able to build and what, just based on financial limitations. And so when we looked at doing addition to our house, there was a kind of a dynamic idea that the architect proposed to us of like, well, we could do this style to get to this number, or we could do a combination of these things to get to this, and just creating something that was not just black and white, but really something that looked at like what would work best for the homeowner and to give them more options within that process and within making those decisions. And I just don't have enough experience with that, but I would love to get more experience with that. So I don't know if there's an expert that we could bring in, whether it's from the county, someone from the town, maybe even a professional in the town that could talk to us about building codes and where they think Nederland should go and what should be updated. But it does seem like it's time, and it seems like the BOT really didn't have a lot to fall back on when it came time to not voting during the last meeting. So they had to really consult the town attorney to find out where they were being legal and how they could postpone that vote and, not get in trouble. And so I think it would be really helpful to give them something to fall back on that was more sustainability focused.
Hi, this is Hunter. So I don't know a lot about this because our project has been postponed, but we are building a building for our adaptive program for Ignite. And I do know that all Boulder County new construction has to be within the parameters of the International Green Construction Code. So I know that the county, to Erica's point, has a lot of requirements in new buildings, and I would be interested in offering to do any research or track down the person to talk to at the county and share the information that I get, because I need to do this anyway. So I would be happy to take the lead on that.
That would be awesome, Hunter, if that works for you. And then at least to give us ideas of where to look further and who to ask more questions of and kind of who they would point us towards. I think that would be a great first step.
Great.
You might also want to look at the International Energy Conservation Code. The most up-to-date is 2018. I don't know where Nederland is.
2012, I think.
2012. So I think there's a 2014, and I think it goes, or maybe 2016 and 2018. So there are three codes behind. So that would be some analysis would probably want to be done for that as well, and we'd probably want to. Obviously, we'd want to involve ultimately the town planner to get their perspective.
Yeah, I wonder, Miranda, what it looked like to do like a green building design recommendations and just have a list available of all sorts of things that the town of Nederland likes, and maybe say if they complete 60% of these things, then they can be considered as within Nederland's green design standards or something like that, as a process of when new applications come forward, as opposed to making it a strict code, because I know that upgrading from 2012 to 2018, I know upgrading the code has been a difficult process in the past, so I'm not sure that's something that can necessarily be tackled.
Right, and I think so that I really like that. So two pieces that we are tackling a lot of code updates where we're really focusing more on code cleanup more than like full integration of new pieces. I think recommendations will be great, and Cynthia and I obviously are involved in every application that comes forward. So if there was a set of guidelines that we could give and post on our website and provide to all the builders, and maybe encourage them to connect with SAB. I think there are a lot of developers who are interested in more of a kind of a green development. It's just a matter of providing them that resource.
I think that's a great idea. Just having a checklist. Basically, it's a tool for the BOT, right? You got a new building. Okay, what percentage of sustainability are they pursuing? Is it 25% or is it 80%? I wish Alan was here. It's a bummer he's got a migraine. I think it would be really nice if Alan brought this up to the BOT to ask if this is needed. I would hate for us to spend all this energy in it and it's not needed. I think we're all in agreement that it's needed, but I think we should just double check with the BOT that they actually would like some sort of checklist or something like that, some recommendations.
I could ask him to include it in his staff report or his BOT report. The challenge is we just haven't been getting to those lately. But usually that's a time to ask for that kind of feedback. So I'll ask him to put it in his report for the 20th with fingers crossed we get to it.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, that would be great, Miranda. And just, I know a number of us were on the BOT meeting, but Alan asked the Little Bear developers if they had any plans for solar. And, you know, they really hadn't, but they said that they were open to it. And so just even putting something like that on a checklist, that like this is something we prioritize and we incentivize for approving plans in our town, you know, would give developers also a chance to really set themselves up for success, which I think these Little Bear people are trying to do, but it seems like even some questions at the last meeting really took them by surprise. They didn't really have any research on solar, for example.
Exactly. Yeah. And I can't imagine there's that much, you know, that many new buildings happening. So, you know, but I do think this would be good for future development. Cool. So I guess we'll hear from Alan on what the BOT has to say. And it sounds like Hunter is super motivated to get on this. I am too, Hunter. I like sustainable building design. I like passive homes. So I would love to collaborate with you in developing some sort of recommendation list.
Great. I look forward to working with you.
Cool.
Yeah,
I believe
and I
that's all
think
of my...
Go for it.
Sorry, I was just going to say that was all of my agenda items.
Great. I was just gonna say, yeah, pulling on, you know, already established resources, like LEAD and some other organizations, I think would be great to try to start with and reduce a lot of the workload of what things are applicable here in Nederland.
Hey, Melody, would Kevin Mueller be a good resource?
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, Garrett and Hunter, if you haven't talked with him, I'm sure he would sit down in a heartbeat to share his recommendations on what the code should be and how to make it as most Nederland friendly as possible. I think he's a lead builder engineer. Does that sound right? And he's been the SAB liaison and was on the BOT for a number of years.
Yeah, like,
What was his last name again? I'm sorry.
Mueller, Mueller. He does more electrical, plumbing, engineering type stuff, but is definitely really knowledgeable about all sorts of LEED everything. And I think, yeah, he does do the LEED certification as well, or at least used to. And then Jesse Sievers as well, I believe, is a LEED certified. I don't know what you call them, but they go check out the house and say, yes, this meets LEED certification. So those would be two great people that used to be on SAB. That would be great.
Great. Thank you.
So Garrett, are you done with your section?
I am, yeah.
Okay. So the next thing on the agenda was solar orientation for new buildings, but that was Alan's topic. He asked that was added to the agenda. Do any of you know anything about that or why he would have wanted it added?
Yeah, I think part of the green design standards is
Okay.
one of the things that he wanted as a standard for new design is, do they look at solar orientation to try to get as much passive solar utilization as possible? So south facing windows, etc. And that, you know, Hunter and Garrett just note as something to look at as far as design standards that are green in Nederland.
Will do.
Cool. So I want to be respectful of time. So I'm kind of just looking for you guys' feedback. The next thing on the agenda was the Envision 2030 discussion. But your meeting, I know you guys, if you wanted to end, would end at 8:45. It would end in 7 minutes. So we've got some options. We can continue to keep talking and I can read through these and we can discuss them out loud. These are the newest set of answers after I received a couple more responses. Or alternatively, some boards and commissions have just had me email this out and then you guys review it and then email me back if there's any additional feedback. So what would you prefer right now, given time?
This is Hunter. I actually need to go at 8:45. I'm sorry. I kind of have a hard stop tonight.
So and it looks like Erica dropped off. So if we lose Hunter, you would lose quorum as well. Now, this is not something that needs your approval. It is just something, you know, again, we're in the very beginning stages of Envision. So it's really just collecting feedback. So as you'll see, I just compiled all the answers and really pulled out themes that emerged from based on the answers you all provided. So if you feel like best use of time is for me just to email this out and you review it and give me feedback, I'm happy to go that route. Melody, Reed, Alvin, what do you guys think?
I think that's probably
okay. Alvin and Reed, are you both okay with that?
That sounds like
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool. So I'll send that out to you all. Yeah, and really, we want to just be sure that we're not, you know, there may be statements that you disagree with, and so we're not just like trying to get the complete how does SAB feel as a whole. It's still you as individuals, as SAB board members. So we're trying to keep all the answers, but if you feel like after reading something you have more to add or you want to play off the answer, just give me your thoughts and we'll integrate those. And then the last thing, since we made that decision quickly, was just the farmers market. So on October 4th is Harvest Fest, which is the final farmers market of the year. And we're town's really going to help with the cider station. And we'd love to have as many board and commission members rotate shifts, like an hour or two long, to be there just to talk about the projects you're working on. We'll also have board of trustees members around. So I'm just looking for people to sign up to help with that cider station so that I can make sure, you know, we have coverage for every shift and we don't have too many people there at one time. So if it's something you're available to do, Melody, remind me, Harvest Fest hours, 10 to 3?
10 to 3.
Okay. If you can come for even just an hour on Sunday the 4th from 10 to 3, just shoot me an email and I'll put you on our schedule of people who will be at that event. And that was it on the agenda. So unless there's other business.
Nope. All I got to say is the last two farmers markets are this Sunday and then that next Sunday, October 4th, that we just talked about. We're looking at over 20 vendors this Sunday, and we're looking at close to 40 different tents and stations on October 4th. So it's going to be a great Harvest Fest, social distance, hand sanitizer stations. We'll have the local breweries, distillery, and winery there, and a couple food trucks. So everybody come and support all of our community agriculture producers. All right, if nobody has anything else, I will adjourn the meeting at 8:42 p.m.